Now most of us have seen every nook and cranny of the world of Hyrule in Breath of the Wild, although personally I think the game can still be surprising at times. But we have seen most of it, and one powerful group of creatures that we come across at times are the mighty dragons, beings with incredible elemental powers. But why didn't these godly creatures help out the struggling races of Hyrule when the Calamity Ganon attacked? Or even after that? You know, when they were dealing with all the remaining monsters and robotic tormentors? We've seen that Calamity Ganon even tried to attack them, since one of the dragons is corrupted in the game. So why didn't they fight back? Well, let's find out. And the answer might surprise you. Now let's start by looking at all these beings and their origins, since some things are explained in the game, because there's one small device in Breath of the Wild that can provide the player with lots of information, the Hyrule Compendium, and it also knows things about the dragons. Let's start with Naydra. The Sheikah Slate says the following about it. A spirit of ice has taken the form of this gigantic dragon, making its home in the Lanayru region. It's said to have served the Spring of Wisdom since ancient times. An old saying goes, the dragon ascends to the heavens as the sun begins to set, but nobody has seen this in the current age. The ice that coats its body makes it dangerous to get near, but Naydra bears no ill will towards people. And the next one is Didnt, which it says the following about. A spirit of fire has taken the form of this giant dragon, making its home in the Elden region. It is said to have served the Spring of Power since ancient times. An old saying goes, the dragon ascends to the heavens as the sun begins to set, but nobody has witnessed this in the current age. The flames that coat its body make it dangerous to get near, but Didnt bears no ill towards people. And then finally we have Farosh, who has a similar story, going as followed. A spirit of lightning has taken the form of this giant dragon, making its home in the Faron region. It is said to have served the Spring of Courage since ancient times. And an old saying goes, the dragon ascends to the heavens as the sun begins to set, but nobody has seen this in the current age. The electricity that coats its body makes it dangerous to get near, but Farosh bears no ill will towards people. Clearly, all these stories are extremely similar to each other. Very original of you, Nintendo. They are basically godly elemental dragons who have a role in protecting and serving all the springs, which are crucial. We see that in the story of Breath of the Wild after all. So these are gods, or at least deities of sorts, like all the others seen in the franchise. For example, Valoo in Wind Waker and Eldin from Skyward Sword. However, while they are similar to these beings, they don't help us in any way actually. Well, their scales and horns can be handy materials for all kinds of things, but they don't directly help Link or Zelda in any way in the game, which is really odd when you think about it. Well, I thought it was odd after someone mentioned it in my Discord server. The link to that can be found in the description, by the way. And I mostly find it weird because in older games the dragons always did help. Let's take Lanayru from Skyward Sword for example. He helps Link with the Song of the Hero, which he needs to complete in order to beat Demise, and even gives him the indestructible Hylian shield if he's able to prove his skills and powers are worthy of it. And there are many more examples of other dragons like him in a lot of different titles of the franchise. But here in Breath of the Wild, it's just not the case. But why? Why didn't they help the people of Hyrule? Well, I actually have some possible answers as to why they didn't do anything. Some of which are understandable, while others are kind of evil in a way. But let's start with the more reasonable answer as to why the dragons didn't help. It's not that they didn't want to save people and even the world, it's that they simply couldn't do anything. And that's because Calamity Ganon is actually too powerful for them and is able to fully corrupt them, which every player could see as soon as they encountered Naydra. This dragon is first seen atop Mount Lanayru, suffering due to the corruption of the malice of Calamity Ganon. And so Link must purge the dark corruption and save the dragon in order to get Naydra's skill and complete a shrine quest. Now overall, this is a fun little mission for the player, which also shows off how the dragons function in the game. Sure, it was a bit lackluster because most people expected more from some sort of dragon boss fight, but that's not what we're going to discuss today, although it would be a cool topic. However, the point I want to make is that these creatures can also be corrupted by the evil influence of Ganondorf, like almost anything seen in the game. The best example of such a thing was seen 100 years ago before the events of the game when Hyrule lost to the Lord of Evil. Back then, the kingdoms of Hyrule thought they were completely ready and prepared for the return of Ganondorf. They had all kinds of guardians, gigantic divine beasts that could shoot huge lasers, and most likely a pretty big army to back up all those robots. And they were quite confident that they would win. Those robots defeated him before, so why not do it again? That was their thinking at least. But in the end, something happened that no one expected. Ganon did something he had never really done before, unleashing malice and taking control over every machine and creature he could get his hands on, using all of them against the remaining forces of Hyrule, almost wiping them out completely in no time. And maybe, because of all of that, the dragons couldn't help the forces of Hyrule in their battle against this evil. Clearly Ganon can corrupt them, so maybe the deities decided not to get involved and just defend the springs so that Ganon couldn't get his hands on more powerful minions. As you can imagine, a being like Naydra is incredibly strong, and if used properly by Calamity Ganon, it could even destroy Hyrule on its own. Arrows only annoy these dragons after all, so who knows what it takes to defeat this huge dragon god. So that could be a reason for the dragons to stay away and not confront the divine beasts or even Calamity Ganon. Heck, it could even be that the laser of a divine beast is strong enough to shoot down one of these dragons, which would be another good reason for them staying out of this. They didn't even get involved and one of them was still consumed and corrupted by the malice plague seen around Hyrule. All of this would explain why they left the world to their doomed fate, which was only just saved before it went completely wrong. So that's one of the options we have. An understandable one actually. Some citizens might have been angry at the dragons before, but as soon as they learned about the fact that they could also be corrupted and used by evil, most will likely calm down and understand. But while this could certainly be a reason for them staying out of the whole conflict, there could be another reason for them not joining the fight. A more cold and selfish one. Now, a couple of years ago, in the glorious year of 2016, I made a different theory video called The Actual Plan of the Gods. In that video, I talk about the role and influence of the Golden Goddesses. These beings are the original creators of the world that the Zelda games take place in. They kind of look over the world and sometimes help the races of Hyrule, for example when Ganondorf won and they decided to flood the world, saving thousands and resulting in the events of the Wind Waker. But they have also allowed terrible things to happen. A good example is Ganondorf winning in Zelda Ocarina of Time. This resulted in a dark timeline, filled with death, doom and destruction. All these games are filled to the brim with terrible things. Now, for the people who don't know, the games are split up in 3 timelines as you can see here, and it's all because of the events of Ocarina of Time, where we had multiple different outcomes resulting in 3 different realities. But anyway, the point I'm trying to get across is that the gods of Hyrule don't always care. The triforce, which they created, even grants any wish of an evil person. Good, bad, it doesn't matter to them, which I talk about in that older theory video. Also, you can find it in the upper right corner. Check it out after you're done with this one though. So since the gods don't really care, it could be that the servants of the deities that rule over the world don't care about any conflicts the Hylians, Gorons, Rito, and Zora have. And so they decided they wouldn't help them in defeating the threat known as Calamity Ganon. It just didn't matter to them, even though it could be their end. It wouldn't be the first time ever that the gods have ignored the problems and conflicts of the mortals that roam Hyrule like a bunch of ants. Even the most powerful artifact, the Triforce, can create life or completely destroy it. So if that's already the case, and it's somewhere in the world for anyone to find, then why help them defeat some dumb malice ghost? This explanation would anger any inhabitants of Hyrule, and might even make them angry against the gods. But it could be true. Although I will say that it's mentioned that the dragons are servants of the goddess, who is a deity that was supposed to protect Hyrule from evil. She even sealed away the original King of Evil, seen in the very first game of the timeline, Skyward Sword. And she also helped out the first Link during the events of Skyward Sword. And that's because Zelda is actually the mortal incarnation of the goddess. So if the dragons serve her, then they would have helped the people of Hyrule for sure, since Zelda was risking her life as well. But it all kind of depends on who these deities truly serve. And so we reach the end of this video, and I'm leaving you with 2 options, an understandable one and a cold one. So let me know which one is more likely according to you. Or maybe you even have a different explanation for all of this. Cause who knows what their reason could be. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to check the video in the upper right corner, click subscribe and the bell button, leave a like and a comment, naughty or nice, and I will see all of you in the next video.